Welcome to Module 3 of Missouri Family to Family Peer Mentor Training, Communication and Listening. If you would like a copy of the slides to take notes or to follow along, they can be downloaded in your Think If It course under Missouri Family to Family Peer Mentor Training, Module 3 Slides. Let's quickly review what we discussed in Module 2. We heard from our director, Shelley Reynolds, as she discussed what drives all that we do and how we do it. It's the Charting the Life Course framework. We talked about the importance of having a vision for yourself and your loved one, and how we can tell our family story through the lens of Charting the Life Course. We also talked about the importance of using person-first language. This is the third module in a series of Missouri Family to Family Peer Mentor Trainings. It is designed to provide interested members with an introduction to the components of active listening and effective communication. Also, how to identify roadblocks to that effective communication, as well as how to use the Charting the Life Course framework and tools to increase effective communication in your role as a peer mentor. Module 3 will contain this online video, a Module 3 quiz, a pre and post survey, and the Charting the Life Course trajectory worksheet. If you go to Module 3 in your Think If It course, you can download the trajectory worksheet and print it. If you are unable to download or print the document, please contact your facilitator to make other arrangements. Also, please make sure you've completed your pre-survey prior to continuing this module. When you finish this module, you should be able to demonstrate active listening skills through role-playing activities that we will be doing. You should also be able to identify roadblocks to effective communication and how to avoid them. You will also be able to practice using the Charting the Life Course framework to increase effective communication. Remember that our core belief is that all people and their families have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. Remember that all of our things that we do is based on the Charting the Life Course framework. This is a framework that came out of the desire to change the way we look at services and supports. It helps family members think about their vision for a good life, think about what they know and do, identify how to find or develop supports, and discover what it takes to live a good life. Everything that we do is guided by the Charting the Life Course framework. Let's review quickly the principles of the Charting the Life Course framework. So first, you have the person in the context of the family. Charting the Life Course embraces and works within all the domains, not just the typical health, safety, and security that we used to think about. We know that families need 3 basic types of support: discovery and navigation, connecting and networking, and goods and services. Charting the Life Course focuses on integrated supports, personal strengths and assets, relationships, technology, community, and eligibility-based services. Woven together, these create a colorful life, and we focus on the trajectory to lead us toward our vision of a good life, knowing that what we do now affects us in the future and across the lifespan. All of these things work together to make a good life. So now we're going to talk about communication. So for communication and listening skills, during your time as a mentor, you're obviously going to be doing a lot of communicating. That's why it's important to always be improving our communication skills. While a lot of your communication skills will be improved with practice, there are some concrete initial steps that you can take to improve communication between you and the requesters. One of them is providing an appropriate environment, developing a relationship, and encouraging communication from the requester. Providing an appropriate environment for interaction with your requester is a great way to start things off. Make sure you have the time to give the requester your undivided attention. Sometimes mentoring calls can be on the longer side. So it's equally important to allot enough time so that you aren't rushed. You can't ever be sure what's going to happen on the other side of the phone. So make sure to ask if it's a good time to talk. If it's not a good time, make sure to let them know that you're available or that you can reschedule. Developing a relationship or establishing rapport with the requester is important as well. Rapport means closeness through understanding, being in harmony with the other person. Rapport helps you connect. Let the requester know you're a family member or a self-advocate, who you are, a Missouri Family to Family trained peer mentor, and let them know that you're there to listen and will maintain confidentiality. Always make sure to respect their feelings as valid. All of their feelings have value: anger, sadness, anxiety, fear, guilt, even denial. They all play an important part in the coping process. You can encourage the requester to share by taking the time to listen, not interrupting their thoughts and following the conversation rather than leading it. Validate how the other person feels, not how you would feel in the same situation. Ask open-ended questions and be accepting of their answers. Open-ended questions would be things like, tell me about your child, or how are things going for you? Respect their own strength and ability to cope, and don't feel like you have to fill the silence. Allow them time to reflect and regroup. Use a warm tone and speak slowly. Oftentimes, we can be nervous when we're speaking to someone we don't know for the first time. I know when I'm nervous, I try to speak fast, so I have to consciously remind myself to slow down my speech. Now let's go over listening and how important it is in the peer-mentor relationship. Remember to use active listening when you're speaking with a requester, connecting with a requester. Active listening techniques enhance your interaction with them. Being an active listener means listening for more than just facts. It's kind of like reading between the lines. Again, make sure you remove distractions and make time to listen. In order to listen, one has to stop talking. Make sure you allow the requester significant time to speak. Empathize with them. Put yourself in their shoes. Keep calm, even if the requester gets upset. So there's different ways that we can listen, different techniques, and different things that we can think about. Listening with the Charting the Life course tools can help you with this. Earlier in the training, you started to work on your vision and trajectory. We discussed how to utilize the trajectory to think about events. You can also use it to help guide your conversation with the requester. The trajectory worksheet can remind you to ask about their vision for themselves or their loved ones. If they're struggling with making a decision, we talked about that. And it also reminds you to ask them which choice gets them closer to their vision and which one sends them in the wrong direction. It also reminds you to think about those typical life experiences and if they're able to have them. There can sometimes be roadblocks in communication. Certain attitudes and statements have negative effects on a support relationship. Things like ordering or directing, saying things like, oh, don't go back to that doctor, or you have to do therapy with your child every single day. Telling the person what consequences, good or bad, will occur if they do something like, if you do that, you'll be sorry, or saying, I promise it'll get better. Preaching or saying things like, God never gives us more than we can handle. That might be your personal belief, but you don't know how that makes them feel. Giving advice like, oh, you should get more involved, or your child needs to be evaluated by so-and-so, or I'm going to call and make an appointment for you. Those things are not helpful for a requester. The I-my syndrome is not helpful. Saying things like, oh, we had an awful experience with that doctor, or trying to explain the person's feelings for them. An example would be saying something like, you feel that way, or maybe if you just disciplined him more. Probing for too much information can seem like you're invading their privacy or making a negative judgment of the person. Like if you say, I certainly wouldn't do that with my child. Saying things like, people with Down syndrome are just so happy, or kids with autism run away a lot. Those are not helpful. Giving a diagnosis. You might feel like you know exactly what the diagnosis is, but don't diagnose their child. If you think they have a diagnosis of a certain thing, recommend that they go talk to their doctor. So there's lots of other reasons not to give advice. Some requesters have problems that make them feel insecure. We can just unintentionally set ourselves up as kind of quote unquote authorities. Sometimes giving advice causes more harm than good. You have to remember that the requester is more familiar with their family culture and support system. They're more likely to be successful if they can work out their own solutions and may already know subconsciously what needs to be done. It sometimes just takes talking it through with someone. You may not know what the real problem is, and your advice may make the requester feel patronized. When you become the advice giver, you're pulled directly into the problem-solving process, and you're not allowing the requester to improve their own problem-solving skills. They may become dependent on you to solve their problems instead of empowering them. There might be times when the requester asks you to do more than you can or that you should do. In this case, you should always refer them back to Missouri Family to Family. So what can you do instead of giving advice? You can offer your experience on the topic. You can provide emotional support. A listening, sympathetic ear is often what's needed. If it's a question about things like side effects or directly regarding services, refer the requester back to the provider. They're more qualified to answer these questions and provide direction than you are. Maybe they're unhappy about a service. Help them through talking with them, help them to define exactly what the problem is. Asking questions like what they don't like about it or what part of the situation gives them anxiety. And that will help them to pinpoint exactly what they're unhappy with. Then you can provide resources, and that allows the requester to solve the problem on their own. If a requester directly asks you for recommendations, asking you to give specific, like what daycare would you recommend kind of thing. Instead of giving them advice, you can offer them an array of strategies and resources that can help them make that decision on their own. So let's discuss what we talked about in Module 3, review it quickly. We talked about the components of active listening and effective communication. We talked about potential roadblocks to effective communication and how we can use the Charting the Life course framework and the tools, the trajectory specifically to increase effective communication for listening and for prompting the requester.
For this module, please make sure you have filled out your post survey and taken your Module 3 quiz. You will also need to complete and submit a Charting the Life course tool of your choice that will demonstrate your active listening skills during your follow-up call. You can also find other instructions in your Think If It course under your homework. Make sure you contact your facilitator to schedule that follow-up call. And like I said, you'll be practicing active listening skills through role play on this call. So you will be able to choose either a life course tools trajectory or Charting the Life course tools integrated support star. And your facilitator will have a role play script and be able to kind of role play a call. And during that time, you want to be using one of those tools, whichever you choose, the trajectory or the star, to practice those active listening skills. And then you'll turn that into your facilitator.
If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact your facilitator for clarification. Thank you for completing Module 3.